The meeting also started recording. Cool. Benton's, can you guys recollect what we have discussed yesterday? Did I talk anything about the data source?
Yeah, it's we discussed further into the JNDI.
Okay. Did I show any lab related to the data source?
No. And also
I
the
haven't.
transaction XA, non-XA, we discussed about this.
Okay. That's it. I haven't talked about anything else that related to the lab.
I mean, we have created the data source like referenced with the GUI
Okay.
admin console.
Okay. So let me paraphrase. Okay. So yesterday, first of all, my apologies. There was a heavy rain started in the morning. So we had an issue with the network. Okay. Yep. So if you see here, uh, correct me in case if I'm wrong. So yesterday we start off ourselves with the data source. What exactly is meant by data source?
You're asking a question?
No, just one second.
Is it still raining in Hyderabad?
Yeah, even yesterday night also it was horrible. I'm not sure about the other part, but in couple of areas, especially in the now it's called as an old city, but previous it used to be a heart of the Hyderabad, the Tank Band, the old city, the IDPL Chintal, the outskirts of the city, badly
Mm-hmm.
affected. Because I stay in Manikonda, the impact
Mm.
isn't that much, but the challenge here is that the roads are pathetic, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So bad that the journey which I used to complete going to my office in which is around 5 to 6 kilometers takes around in
Mm-hmm.
my car 25 to 30 minutes and in bike it takes around 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. The same now, it's costing me close to around 1 to 1.5 hours if I go in my
Oh
car.
God.
That much bad on the road, and added to that, the simple traffic sense people doesn't follow.
Yeah.
So couple of problems with that. What I'm trying to do right now is that there is some exception came in. So I'm just trying to search if there's something which something went wrong. Uh,
Is it the socket one?
I changed it. I didn't make the change from here. Cool. Yes. So coming back to our session, correct me in case if I'm wrong. So yesterday we were trying to talk about the data source. I told about what exactly is meant by data source. What's the concept of connection pool? Okay, and as part of the different ways of creating a data source, I said that either you try to create the data source from the command line or from the CLI. There are certain parameters that we need to capture. The first one is the database related properties. In the sense, where is my database? What is the IP? What is the port number? What is the database? Okay. What is the URL string? What is the driver? And once we have all this information, we need to download the database driver file. So once we have all this information, the next step is that how do we use this to configure the data source in the JBoss? I told that to configure a data source in the JBoss, you can do it from the two different ways, either from the GUI tool called as an admin console or either from the CLI. These are the two ways you can do that. So either ways when you're trying to do it, okay, what we have to do is that, okay, unlike your WebLogic or a WebSphere, what we have to do for the first thing before we think of doing the data source is that the driver file, the JDBC driver file should be available before you click on the data source creation. So for that, what we can do is that whatever the data source file that is there, okay, let me show you the data source file.
And this file is provided by the Oracle DB, isn't it?
No, no. It
We
depends
need to
upon
download.
how, if you see here, whether they provide it or not, it depends upon the wrapper you have with them. If you ask me, Shiva, forget about the wrapper, officially would they have to share it to me or not? If you ask me officially, then there's no golden rule that they have to share it to you.
So we just download it from the
Yeah,
Oracle
you have
DB.
to download it from the google.com. If they're kind enough and they were good persons, okay. And not frankly speaking, this driver related information, the URL related information, the ID password of your database, okay, all these things are not given to you by your DBA. It is given to you by the person who is raising the change request, which is again the application support team. Clear?
Mm-hmm. So what
Clear?
is
Not
the
clear? Okay, okay.
what is the recommended driver for this 6.4
It's always the
6.2?
type 4 driver.
Sorry, I
It's
didn't
always the
get that.
type 4 driver.
Type 4.
Yep.
Okay.
You can simply say download driver file for Oracle, let's say 12G. You get it. 12C, not 12G, 12C. You get the latest one only.
Okay.
Okay. So what we have to do, okay, once we have the information of the database details, that is the URL, username, password, uh, the port number, the driver file, all this information once we have it, okay, and what we have to do before we start doing the deployment, copy your database driver file, okay, have your database driver file available inside the JBoss, okay, before you start creating a data source. So how we can do that, okay, the one way I told is that take this driver file, take this particular driver file. Once you take this particular driver file, you keep it, okay, inside your deployment folder, or you log into the admin console, deploy it as an application. That's it. Okay. Next time when you're trying to create a data source, it would be available. That's one way we have discussed yesterday. And after we are done deploying the driver JDBC driver file, I then logged into the admin console and I opened the configuration folder, click on the drivers and created an non-XA database data source. Anyone, any questions still here?
Yeah.
Satish and Venu, any questions? Okay. How about Satish? Cool. If you closely observe here, oh sorry, not this one. If you closely observe this particular driver file, not only I can copy this one, this is a jar file. Not only I can copy this jar file inside my deployments folder, or not only I can deploy this jar file as an application inside my JBoss, but the other way of doing this one is that I can copy paste this. Okay, I can copy paste this particular jar file as inside my modules folder, and I can ask my JBoss to pick from there. How do I do it, and in what scenarios I do it? Deploying an application, deploying an jar file as an application archive, and creating a data source. This is something we do it either from the command line or from the admin console. Imagine a scenario that you don't know, or some reason you cannot access the admin console or a CLI. Then what you can do is that you can edit the XML file. Sure, what XML file I can edit? To create a data source, depending upon the type of instance, okay, depending upon the type of profile you want to pick up, according to that, edit that particular corresponding profile configuration file. For example, you want to create a data source, okay, and start your standalone instance in a default mode, okay, using a default profile. Then pick the standalone.xml file. You say that, no, Shiva, I want to create a data source and start the standalone instance using a full profile. Then you edit standalone-full.xml file. You say, no, Shiva, I want to create a data source which is applicable, and when I start the standalone instance in full-HA mode, then you edit the standalone-full-HA.xml file. So depending upon your requirement, okay, try to edit the corresponding XML file. Obvious question comes, Shiva, how do I do that? Very simple. Okay, what you have to do is that, as I said, before you think of creating a data source, first thing what we have to do is that we have to have this particular driver file available to the JBoss. So how you can make it available to the JBoss? Very simple. Okay, you have to, in case if you are using the admin console, you have to make it as a deployment file. Since you are not using either the admin console or the command and CLI, you can't have it as a deployable archive file. Then what you need to do? You need to edit the modules folder. Clear? Clear? Not clear? Okay, okay.
Clear.
Satish? Perfect. Did we talk about this anytime? Oh, we didn't talk about this? Not about the data source creation? How and in what scenarios we edit the modules folder? Oh, Satish, okay. Manju, you remember?
Yeah, initially we talked about this, I think, to include some
Yes.
deployments or something.
After we are done with the installation of the JBoss application server, while I was explaining the different folder structure we have got, I said that by default in the JBoss application server, okay, whenever you want to update your class path, there's no concept of a lib folder pickup. Whatever the class path related parameters you want to modify, whatever the class path related jar files you want to have it, please ensure that you edit the modules folder. How we edit? I picked up a sample one and I shown you. Okay, very, very important, guys. Don't forget about this. I have a Postgres database. You can give any name to the folder, but I'm giving the folder name called as a Postgres. So understand that I'm trying to create a data source related driver file for my Postgres. Shiva, I created here. I don't know what to do now. Very simple. You go to any of the folder and try to see what exactly is there inside that. Okay, this fellow, after he created a folder, he also created another folder. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing. Okay, very simple. So now what we have to do, we created a folders in the models directory. Now the next responsibility is that, okay, we need to copy our driver file here. Once we copy the driver file over here, the next important thing is that we need to say to the JBoss that, hey JBoss, there's a driver file inside the models directory. How do we say that one? Whenever your JBoss application server is getting started up, it refers to the models directory, and there is an XML file called as an modules.xml file. Depending upon the entries that are there in the models.xml file, that corresponding driver files are loaded by the JBoss application server. Clear?
So unless you're using the admin console or CLI, this is the other method. But when you're using those, it will automatically get deployed here.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Clear?
Yep.
Venu, clear? Okay. So I don't know how to create a models.xml file. I'm very new to the JBoss application server. So what I can do is that, as I said, okay, you can pick up any of the existing model.xml file and copy paste it here. Once you copy paste it here, you refer the model.xml file, okay, you edit or modify the model.xml file as per your requirement. Okay, so where it is present here, if you see here, it is present not. What is the name of my jar file? Clear? That's it. That's it. Nothing. These are all the comment section. I forgot to say about this one. Anytime inside your JBoss application server, if you see anything starting with this and this is the start of the comment, this is the end of the comment. If you want to comment out multiple lines in an XML file, okay, this is how you generally try to do it. So any lines that are there inside this block, your controller will not execute it. It will assume it as a comment and will skip that. Clear? Clear? Not clear? Okay, okay.
Yeah, clear.
Sure. Okay, how about Venu? You're clear? Satish, I got you. How about Venu? You're clear? Cool. So Satish, what we are trying to do here is that we are trying to create a data source. How we can create a data source? Okay, we can create a data source, as I told you, from the CLI or from the admin console. If you want to create a data source from the admin console, what we have to do is very simple. If you want to create a data source, log into the admin console. Oh, sorry. It's 9992. So we are trying to understand how do we create a data source. If you want to create a data source, first thing what you have to do is that, okay, you have to capture all the information that are necessary to create a data source or a connection pool. What are the information you need to collect? You need to have the location where the database is present, that is the IP, the port number, okay, the URL string, the driver, the username, the password, etc. So once you have all this information, you can now initiate creating a data source. The first step of the data source creation is that you have to copy your driver file. You have to share the driver file before you try to click on creating a data source. If you see a WebLogic or a WebSphere, for your standard databases like your Oracle, MS SQL, MySQL, there will be driver files already given to you by the WebLogic or a WebSphere application server. Okay, you just need to click on the data source and you need to create it. But for the application servers like Tomcat or for your JBoss, you need to explicitly say where is your driver file present before you start creating a data source. So for those reasons, okay, what JBoss says is that you can share your driver file, okay, in two ways. First one is by copying that particular application, by copying that particular jar file as a deployment file, or you have to copy it as a class path file. How do you say to the JBoss that you can copy it as an deployment file? Log into the admin console or go to the standalone home deployments directory and click on add and provide the location where you have your jar file. Copy it. Okay. Once you copy it, okay, next time when you're trying to create a data source, it would be visible here. It would be visible here. You need to select the driver file. But imagine a scenario that, okay, you don't have an access to the admin console or you don't have an access to the CLI. Now you need to create a data source. So to create a data source also, the structure here remains the same. What is the structure? Okay, first we have to share or give the JDBC driver file to the JBoss. How do we do it? Since we don't have an access to the admin console or to the CLI, wherein which I can provide it as a deployable archive, what I am trying to do is that since JBoss told that you can not only share the driver file as a deployable archive, but also as a class path file, what I know is that whenever a term class path comes into the picture, immediately one thing that should flash in our mind is the modules folder. So what we do is that we go to the JBoss home modules directory, okay, and create the JDBC driver file. How do we do it? You go inside the modules folder, okay, whatever the name you want to give for your driver file related JDBC, you do that. I'm comfortable too with a name called as an Postgres because this is the driver file that is related to the Postgres. So that it will be easy for me, I created it. Once you are done creating this particular folder, okay, every modules folder, okay, since JBoss is an application server based on Java JDBC, the execution of it will start from a main method. So what we have to do is that we have to go to the JBoss home Postgres directory, create another mandatory folder by name main. Once you create the mandatory folder by name main, inside that you copy your list of jar files that are there inside this. Once you copy this, okay, how do you say to the JBoss to pick it up? JBoss says that whenever I'm trying to start the server, I refer to the modules directory, and depending upon what are the entries that are there inside the modules.xml file of your modules folder, only that jar files I'll pick up. But we don't know how to create this modules.xml file. So what I did is that I referred back to the other module.xml file, copied it here and edited as per my convenience, as per my requirement. So I told that, hey, there is a jar file present in the relative path called as com.postgres. Go over there and there's a jar file called as JDBC Postgres JDBC4.jar file. Load this. Clear? I made a reference of them. Correct? Any questions? Okay. So now we are done. So now we are done editing the module.xml file. Once we are done editing the module.xml file or modules.xml file, the next thing we have to do is that we have to start creating a data source. How we can start creating a data source? Okay, we have to edit the XML file. Since I'm trying to create a data source for my JBoss application server, which would be started up in a default mode, I'm picking up the standalone.xml file. For your scenario, it might be standalone-full.html file, standalone-ha.xml file, standalone-full-ha.xml file. This might be the scenarios. Clear? Anyone?
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay. How about Venu and Manju? Is it clear?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I go to the standalone.xml file. Now I know that, okay, data sources is nothing but it's a subsystem. Okay, so I know that somewhere in the subsystem I have to edit it, but I don't know where to edit it. What I'll do is that I'll go to the data source subsystem. Okay, I go to the data source subsystem and I see that there is an, okay, there is an sample or an example data source that is already present. Let me make a use of this one. Guys, this is only for my reference to understand that, okay, these are the changes that are done by me. In your scenario, if you want, you can keep the uh, if you want, you can have it without any comments, or else, okay. Oh my God, not here, not here, not here, not here. Okay, no problem. Accidentally, I thought that I copied it, but I didn't copy it. Editing of the XML should be done with the cautious, because some accidental addition will result that nothing will work. I go to the data source.
You mean any spaces in between as well will have an impact?
Definitely. This is the default data source that is there, called as an H2 data source. Okay. I want to use this.
So the subsystem for data source will be one, but inside that you create a number of data sources.
Yeah. When you go inside the data source subsystem, okay, whatever the data source you want to create, you create it. This is a sample data source that is available. If you say, no, no, Shiva, this is a sample or example data source, I don't want to create it, okay, I don't want to have it in my system as part of my server hardening guidelines, you can remove that, no problem, because that's a sample or an example one for you. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, clear? Clear?
Yeah.
How about Satish and Venu? Why did I delete it? You're clear? Because that's an example or sample one. Okay, so if you want, you can keep it, or if your server hardening guidelines doesn't allow you that, you can remove it. Okay, now give some name to your data source, called as Postgres. Postgres data source. Clear? DS means data source. What is the name of my pool?
Does it
It's
have
something
it?
like config.xml file, which, yes. Okay, like how we have config.xml file in a WebLogic application server, even in the JBoss also, all the configuration files, okay, are consolidated to one file called .xml file. Now, depending upon what is the profile you have got, according to that, we have either standalone.xml file, standalone-full.xml file, standalone-full-h.xml file, standalone-h.xml file. What are all this profile? Each and every profile has a significance. HA profile has got a clustering capability, full profile has got a messaging capability, standard profile has a default properties like that. Now depending upon your requirement, how you want to start your JBoss, whether you want to give your JBoss an full-fledged clustering and messaging capability, or you want to start it in a default way, according to that you need to edit the file. Clear?
Yeah. Does it have any limitation of number of data source for each profile?
No limitations. You can create any number of data source you want. In the same default profile, if you want to create a data source for your Postgres, Oracle, DB2, MS SQL, MySQL, Aurora, MongoDB, okay, whatever the database for which you want to create a data source, you create it. No restriction from the JBoss point of view.
Okay.
And process remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Cool. So now give some name. You given a name, and what is the connection URL string? This URL string I have it somewhere else. Let me pause the screen sharing and get it from you. I wanted a data screen sharing pause. Okay, don't worry about that. Guess everyone able to see the connection URL which I'm typing now?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the inputs you will be getting from the person who has raised a change request to create a data source. Either it might be a DBA or either it might be an application support person. 99% of the time this is taken care by the application support person. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Clear? Not clear? Okay, okay.
Clear.
What is the username? Username. One second, guys. Username and password I forgot. Okay, cool. Password, I'll fill it up little later. Okay?
Is it not encrypted?
When you type in, it's not encrypted. That's a problem. That's the reason I said I'll enter it little later.
No, I'm not asking about this, but if it is not encrypted, then it is like viewable, right? The
Yes, anyone and
security.
everyone who opens the XML file, they can see that.
Yeah, but like the security people, IT security and all will have. You won't put the passwords in a non-encrypted clear text file, isn't it?
For the same purpose, okay, there is a concept called as a vault.
Oracle Vault.
JBoss itself has got a vault, a command called as a vault. It will encrypt whatever the clear text you have got. Okay, I'll talk about it little later.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So give the password. The reason why I'm not giving the password is a little secured one. I don't want to give it right now.
No,
So,
that's fine.
so I'm not putting it here. Next one we have to do is that we have to give the driver information. Okay. You told that, okay, Shiva, we have this, I created a driver. Okay. Now you can pick up this particular driver file and use it. But how do I say to the standalone that, hey, there's a location where I have my driver file? For that reason, you can edit the driver section. Again, I'm new to the JBoss application server. I don't know how to edit it. I'll pick up the sample or the example one I have got. This is only applicable after you have created the entries inside the modules directory. if you see here, this is the tags that are related to the default driver called as an H2 database driver. If you remember, a couple of minutes back, I have deleted the entry for the. What did I do? Oh my God. Okay. Guess, can anyone
You
say to
didn't
me what
save.
the mistake I made? I deleted the subsystem tag called as an data source. Okay. If you see here, I have deleted a. No, I haven't deleted. Sorry, I thought I deleted. This subsystem tag, I thought I deleted it. No, I didn't delete it. Okay. So this is an asset when you're trying to edit the XML file. Please be a little bit cautious. So if you want, you can keep the driver file references that are related to the default database which you have deleted previously. Otherwise, you can delete it. I don't want to keep it. I want to delete it. Okay. What is the name of our driver file? Postgres. Where exactly it is present? It is present inside the com.postgres folder. And is it an exe data
Main.
source? Yeah, sorry.
You don't put main.
No, it's not main is the one that is by default would be picked up. No need to
Okay.
again say about the reference of your main.
Okay.
Okay, because as I said, JBoss application server, when you're trying to create a JBoss application server, okay, this JBoss application server is a application server developed using the Java J2EE technology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so by default it knows that, okay, by default inside the code itself, the reference of this one will be there.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So we are not using any exit driver class, so let's try to delete that also, or let's try to comment it out. Okay, now we are done creating a driver file. Okay, we are done creating the making the changes in the configuration file. Let's try to restart it. Why do I need to do the restart of the server?
Because you made config changes.
Yeah, I made a configuration changes, so that's the reason I need to do a restart. See here, I have a data source by name PostgreSDS now. Any question on how do we create a data source? From the command line, from the editing the XML file. CLI, don't ask me now, I'll show it to you after we are done with the data domain mode. And believe it or not, guys, the same stuff will keep on repeating even for the domain mode. At that time, I'll not talk about the theory, I'll just show you the lab on how do we do it in the domain mode. Anyone, any questions here?
Other than the vault, I don't have anything.
Vault, hold it. When you're trying to talk about the security, just give me a reminder, I'll explain you at that time.
Okay.
But data source, is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So if you guys are clear, let me continue. Okay, so we talked about the how do we do the deployments. We talked about the different subsystems we have got. Okay, we talked about the concepts related to the deployments, configuration, etc. Now we'll try to pause our discussions on the standalone as of now, and we'll quickly jump into the domain mode. Okay, but before I do that, I have a question. Can I ask you all?
Yes, please.
Okay, I created a data source. Okay, when I created a data source, automatically by default, okay, connection pool will be created. Correct or not?
Yes.
Okay, which we can see it here. Now, when I click on test connections, okay, I'll get an exception. Why? Why? Anyone remember what's the mistake I made?
Is it enabling it or something like that?
I already did a restart, Satish, and no, not even enabling. If you remember, I didn't give the password for my data source.
All right.
Did I give the password here? I told I'll give the password little later. Okay, no problem. That's a simple one which you can comfortably make it out from the logs. Other question. When I'm clicking on the test connection, would the connection pool size which I have defined, would the connection objects from there it would picked up or from where it pick up? I see the size of my connection pool is 0. So when I click on test connections, how does the test connection objects will be initiated? Assume that the password is given, everything is syntactically correct.
It has to be initiated from the connection pool itself, theoretically.
How about others? Of course from the config file, because every time whenever you're trying to load your JBoss application server, all the configurations will be picked up from there. But when I'm trying to click on the test connections, assuming that all the parameters which are given are 100% correct, a test connection object will be initiated and it will be going and hitting the database whatever we have created, and it will generate me a response. My question here is that, okay, where that connection object will be picked up? Would it be picked up from the connection pool we have defined, or if it's from somewhere else? If it is from somewhere else, where does it, what is that somewhere else defined as?
In the module.xml, like,
Anyone heard about reserve connections? Anyone heard about reserve connections?
that is
Venu?
cached, is it?
No cached. Okay. Are you people work in service-based company or a product-based company? Do people work in service-based company, product-based company? Venu works for a product-based company. Satish, service-based company. Manju, how about you? You work for a product or a service-based company?
Service.
Okay. In a service-based company, Venu, excuse me, I'm unsure if you this concept, this example will really suit to your or not. In a services-based company, like let's take the example of a Infi. Infi people, okay, they try to recruit the cheap labor. I'm not talking about the quality, I'm talking about the cost. They try to recruit a cheap labor and they maintain something called as an bench resources. Anyone knows why they need a bench resource? Why do they keep the hire the people, pay some extra, pay some amount, okay, but still they ask them to be there on the bench? Why? Why they need to fill the resources asset? They can say to the client, no, you wait for 1 month, I have to do a recruitment, get the resources, train him up, then we'll be using it for the future purpose. Can't they pick someone from the teams? I'm going to say that I have some teams, okay. Let's say that Venu belongs to an application server admin team who works for a Bank of America. I have Manju who picks up, who works for same company but for a client called as in JP Morgan Chase. Why can't I take up Manju and Venu and put them to my new project? Can't I do that?
If they have the specific skill set, yes.
They have the specific skill set. They're awesome. Both Manju and Venu are awesome in the application server. Ask anything, immediately they try to give a response. Why do I need to pick someone from the bench rather than picking up from the existing project? Why? What will happen if the result for that particular client or for that particular purpose? Okay, I'll
If
not
the
take the
client is
discussion to Manju.
important to you.
No, client is important. See here, okay. Client is always important. Do you now the trend is that there are a lot of supermarkets, okay, where you don't do this bargain kind of a stuff. But I'm born and brought up in Hyderabad, okay. So now we have the concept of the Satish is on bench for 1 month. Okay, so actually I'm born and brought up in Hyderabad, okay, and the concept of supermarkets weren't that hyped at least till I remember. The hype of the supermarkets was somewhere around 11 years back or 12 years back. Before that, we used to go to the shop, okay, or if there is a function happening up in our place where we have to do the purchases of the groceries in a larger quantity, we used to go to the old city. I forgot now. Okay, Monda Market or something they say it. Monda Market, I think it's for vegetables.
Secunderabad.
Yeah,
This one
there's
is an old
another
city.
one in the old city where we get the groceries.
Begum Bazaar, I think.
Ah, Begum Bazaar. Okay. Manju doesn't forget Begum Bazaar. Okay. So we go to the Begum Bazaar and say that, hey, are this grains which I'm buying from you, are this of super quality? They said, sir, you take it, sir, अब जाके एक बार बना दो खाना, इतना अच्छा रहता ना, आप दोबारा मेरे पास आएंगे वही आइटम के लिए। मगर आइटम भी इतना डिमांडिंग है ना, अगर आप ले लिए तो कल रहने का गारंटी नहीं है, इसलिए मैं बोलता हूँ आप 1 किलो ने 2-2 किलो ले लो बोल के। So what he says that he never says that this is second grade quality. He says it's a first grade quality only, sir. But there's a first grade quality, second grade quality, third grade quality with those people. Whichever you pick up, that fellow will say that that's a first grade quality. Similarly, the reason why I'm giving this example is that, okay, whenever your company people, especially in the services-based company, okay, whenever you try to share the resources to the multiple project, never and ever a manager will say that, no, this resource is meant for, we don't go and update to the customer saying that, hey, this resource I'm putting it to 3 to 4 project. To that customer, he'll say that, sir, आप कभी भी आके ले लो, Manju and Venu are reserved for you only, okay, only for your project. Okay, but that's something different. Coming back to our scenario, our concept, okay, if you see here, whenever I'm trying to pick Manju and Venu who are already allocated to a particular project, and if I'm again asking them to work on a particular project, the efficiency, there is a chance that the efficiency or overutilization might happen. We should never underutilize or overutilize a resource. Okay, we should always use the utilize the resource, okay, in a perfect scenario. So what we have to do is that, okay, that's the reason the services-based company keep the concept of bench, okay, so that whenever a new project comes, they'll pick someone from the bench and they use it. Okay, similarly, when you're trying to hit a test connection to your database, okay, what will happen is that it will not pick up from the minimum or maximum connection pool. There's a pool called as a connection reserve. So when you're trying to do a hit, okay, like a bench concept, this reserve also, what will happen is that a connection object will be initiated from this particular reserve, and it will go and hit the database seeing that, oh, the database is working properly or not, or what are the parameters you are given are 100% correct or not. So never and ever we try to pick any connection object from the min or max connection pool to do a test connection. It will pick up from reserve connection. Clear? Yes, this is by default, and you don't have flexibility to change this behavior. In WebLogic, you can define the size of the connection pool, but not in the JBoss or Tomcat. Okay? Manju and Venu, am I clear? I think Satish, it's clear for you also. Cool. Next question or next concept. What should be the size of my minimum and maximum connection pool? Can you keep 100 and 100? Can you keep 10 and 100? Can you keep 100 and 100? What should be the size of the connection pool? Okay, let me put the question in this way. Since you're all application server admins, okay, tell me what will happen if I keep the size of the connection pool minimum and maximum to be 100 and 100. For example, let's say I'll keep 100, my system will not support. So let me say 10. What will happen now? What will happen if I say flush? Okay, flush is something from the JBoss, so you don't need to take this question. Tell me what will happen if I give the minimum and maximum connection pool as same?
If it needs more than 10, then it can't allocate. It depends upon the connection objects like
I know that
once.
max, okay, the size of my connection object, the number of requests I get in my connection pool will not be more than 10.
So so you're allocating minimum more.
Now I know that max to max, okay, not more than 10 requests will come. If the more than 10 requests comes, they have to wait in the queue. Okay, so
Minimum you can set it as low, no?
why can't I set it to equal value, or why should I have to set it only to the different value?
So that, I mean, whether it's uses or not, it will set to the 10 by default. Like if you put minimum low, then it will just take it from there.
Sorry?
Um if you set it as a default like 10 for both of it, then it will reserve the 10. If you set like minimum low, then it will start from that.
True, but what will happen, okay, if I give the equal values? I mean, so from the performance or from the system point of view, you're saying what is how it will be
Unnecessarily
initiated.
you're reserving the resources which may not be used.
It will be used. What will happen? Okay, can you just take this one as a homework and let me know the answer either today in the evening when we meet or tomorrow? Satish and Venu, okay for you all? Very important, and generally 2 to 3 questions will definitely come from the interview.
Yeah.
Just take this answer. It's very simple. Takes 5 to 10 minutes of your Google, not more than that. Or has anyone heard about the technology called as an IoT, Internet of Things, or Alexa of Amazon, or Allo of Google?
Yeah.
Okay. The beauty of this Allo or Alexa or IoT things is that there's no need for you to type in. It's like in your mobile phones. Okay, there is something called as a voice control. You try to spell something that will be searched in the Google. Similarly, you have something called as in from the Google Allo, ALO, I think. Okay, which will do a voice search. Okay, let's say that you want to plan your weekend, or you want to say that 8 p.m. I have a session for JBoss. Give me a reminder 10 minutes before. It will record that and it will give you a reminder. It's like a personal secretary, free personal secretary, not paid one. Okay, just something off the line I told. It's a very good app. You guys can play around with that. Cool. So let me come back. My clock right now is 9:05. We are done with the standalone mode. Okay, couple of other concepts are there like clustering and load balancing, which I'll be taking it little later. But it's 9:05 in my clock. We'll take a 5 to 10 minutes of quick break. We'll resume back at 9:15 a.m. for 1 more hour, and when I resume back, I'll start the domain mode. Okay, kindly be available. And as I said, guys, okay, the 99% of the concepts of the domain mode are from the standalone mode. So I'll not go through them theoretically in detailed way. I'll just try to give you an overview and just try to do the lab. Clear?
Okay.
All the best. Okay,
So 10 minutes
so
break, is it?
10 minutes break. My clock is 9:05. We'll resume back at 9:15. I'm pausing the screen share. I'm not ending the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. I'm here as well, Shiva.
Cool, cool. Waiting for Satish and Venu. Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah. Shiva, in the previous sessions, I've asked about like um, for the vertical clustering.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when we have multiple instances on the same host, right? So when we create the users through add user, how do we differentiate between the JVMs? Like
Sorry.
when we have multiple instances running on the same host,
Mm-hmm.
and when we create the users like with the add user script, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do we differentiate between the JVMs?
I didn't get the relation between these two things.
You said you'll get back to me on this. Maybe you forgot. Like, see, with the add user, right? When we create multiple JVMs or instances, like, you will create with the, like the standalone or standalone hyphen whatever JVM you want, but the bin directory will be outside the standalone
Mm-hmm.
folders. So when you create the users, the add user script creates by default the management user or the application user for a
Mm-hmm.
particular instance that's running on the server. But when you
Mm-hmm.
have multiple instances, you can't specify like what user needs to go through, like which management user for what console, like
Oh, okay, 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 okay. Now I know I got that question. Okay.
Yeah.
I I'm unsure why I didn't answer this question at that time. Okay, cool. So let me paraphrase the question. Okay, so that I meant wrong in getting you. So your question is that Shiva, very simple. I got an JBoss application server. I installed. Once I install the JBoss application server, I have two standalone homes.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, just give me a minute. Give me a minute.
No, take your time, Nourish.
Yeah, sorry, I had that light cold in my throat. Yeah. So coming back, so your question is that Shiva, I got two standards, the same thing which we discussed yesterday, I think. Okay. So if you see here, I have two standalone homes. This is one standalone home, and Shiva underscore standalone is another standalone home. Inside this, I'll have instances. How do I say that? Okay, when I'm trying to create an add user.sh, I can create application or a management user. When I'm trying to create, let's say I created a management user by name Shiva. How do I say that this Shiva user should be used only by standalone, or how do I say that this Shiva user should be used by the Shiva underscore standalone profile, standalone one? How do I provide that information? Is that your question?
Yeah.
We have something here called as an management user, sorry, not groups, management user and application users. So whatever the users you are trying to create, okay, you can copy it here. By default, it will copy it to the standalone home. Okay? Just give me a minute. I'm getting a call. Yes, sorry everyone. Small personal call came in. So do we have Satish and Venu also back? I hear a confirmation from Venu. How about Satish? Cool. So coming back to your question, Manju, okay, let me answer this quickly before we get on with this other topic, okay. So whenever you're trying to create any user from adduser.sh, okay, by default that info related to the list of users we are trying to have will be updated into the standalone home or the default domain home. So what we try to do is that when we are trying to hit adduser.sh, okay, we know what is the username we are hitting and we know what is the encrypted password of that. What we can do is that we copy that string, okay, into the application-user.properties or management-user.properties, depending upon whether we are trying to create the application or a management user. For example, let's say that I created a user called as Shiva, and this user I want to get reflected only in the Shiva underscore standalone, but not to the standalone directory. So what I do is that if this user I have seen it in the management-user.properties of the standalone, I'll comment it out, okay, and put an entry in the Shiva underscore standalone configuration folder. Clear?
Okay. Other than this, there's no other option in the add user wherein you specify like the home to be.
No, that flexibility we don't have it.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
My pleasure. I'm not sure why didn't I answer this question on that day. Probably my mind was diverted somewhere.
No, that's fine as long as I get it wrong.
Yeah. Good, good. You are asking me that those questions, okay? Because I generally tend to forget the questions which I told I'll get back to you. Cool. So Satish and Venu, any questions before we get on with the domain mode? My target is that by tomorrow morning, our session is done. We should be done with the domain mode. So that will be close to 50 to 60% of the completion. Okay, and guys, before I forget, let me put a reminder. The coming Saturday and Sunday, I'll not be able to take the session. If I'm not able to take the session, the training would be lasting depending upon to what extent we complete it. By God's grace, if we can complete the domain mode by tomorrow morning, then I'm sure by Monday, not just Monday, next Monday, we'll be able to complete the training. Otherwise, 1 or 2 days, it will be extended. Please bear with me and support me for that. Okay?
Okay.
If you could, the problem is that, as I said, every weekend I have to travel to my hometown. Okay? So that's the reason where I have the issues getting the, adjusting the time. Okay? So bear with me. and support me for a couple of more days. Okay. And one thing is that guys, do a practice. Can you provide the JBoss documents? Yeah, yeah, definitely I'll do that.
Just
And
share it with everyone, Shiva, please.
no, no, definitely with everyone. Definitely with everyone. And do we have anyone by name Chaitanya? When your name, does your name Chaitanya? Don't know, but I got some couple of emails from a person by name Chaitanya. One second. Hello. Everyone, once again, because Hyderabad is hit by the rains very badly. So I stay in Manikonda. Uh, so people are worried that whether to what extent our area or our house got impacted. Because if you see the areas like Kukatpalli, Nizampet, what my cousins and my colleagues they say is that almost from past 2 to 3 days they don't have a power, they don't have a water.
Really?
Seriously.
Oh God.
Yeah. Any one of your friends, relatives, family stays near to that place?
I mean, I've got many relatives there, but I'm just concerned with the general public. Like,
No, the problem here is that it's not, I don't give the complete credit to the government. Small things we also don't consider. When you're buying a house or apartment, we don't try to do the background of from how the plot is being born. The builder got that plot, okay, and what is the area surrounding that, okay. Somewhere they see that it's a little bit cheaper or it's near to the office. Without getting the background of that, they try to buy the apartment. Not even apartment, in the independent house also.
yeah.
And that's
Moreover,
how the
it's
problem starts.
moreover, it's hard to get anything in Hyderabad just now, isn't
Not hard to get it. I say because Nizampet is a village where you don't get a water, drinking water. You have to buy a drinking water. You have to buy in whatever the regular water you use. still people go crazy in there. I don't understand what's that there in that. Only the thing is that it's near to the malls, it's near to the high-tech city. And most of the places that apartments are not now getting constructed, believe it or not, I have a couple of my relatives staying there. I get surprised with the land from there. Some of them, there's a lake there. Someone filled that lake and they started constructing the apartment. And then graveyard, someone occupied particular part of the graveyard and they that. So people say that no, it's the builder is good and the quality of the construction is good, so let me buy it. But they don't do a little bit background check of whether to what extent is this really an viable one, or this should be something we take it. Because we are encouraging it, so they're also doing it. If you don't encourage it, definitely they'll also not buy, do that kind of a stupid things. Because if you see here, even last year Chennai also when it is affected, it's not because of the heavy rains. Okay, people started occupying
Construction.
small lakes, small ponds. Okay, where the water used to go, and now there's no way where the water can go, so it started hitting the bridge. Okay, which is I don't remember the name of that particular bridge. Okay, since that bridge got hit badly, the water was floating inside the city. I'm not sure how many of people had the chance to read that. Okay, but I had a couple of my friends from Chennai, they used to say this. Now the same thing is happening up in Hyderabad. Hyderabad used to be an awesome place when I was a kid. It's become one of the terrible places to stay in. Okay, cool. Something off the track. Yeah. So guys, we already had 15 minutes extra consumed. Cool. So anyone, any questions before I get on or start the domain mode? Any questions on the standalone mode once again? Venu, Manju, you have any questions?
No.
Cool. The video is getting recorded. Yes, the video is getting recorded. I see the session is being recorded under my recordings option. So definitely the recording is happening up. Yeah. So coming back, sorry, coming back about the domain mode. If you see my domain mode, if you see my domain mode, okay, unlike my domain mode, okay, if you see my, let me change the settings of my background so it will be visible. Yeah. So the reason why you see this log temp and servers folder is because, okay, I already started the domain instance for some other batch. But if you see here, okay, instead, no problem. You can go through the recording Venu and kindly be available 8 p.m. today in the evening for the session. Otherwise, you can go through the recording in the evening also. Okay. Yep. Coming back, if you see here under the domain home folder, okay, I see only 3 directories: configuration, data, and temp directory. The moment you start a domain instance, okay, if you see here, okay, you'll be seeing the 2 more extra folders called as an log and servers folder. We don't have any folder by name deployments here. We don't have any folder by name lib here. Everyone able to see that? If you see in a standalone
Yeah.
mode, okay, we have something called as in lib and we have something called as in deployment. The 2 folders aren't available here. Okay, we have configuration, we have data, we have log, we have service, we have temp folder. Okay, the moment I start the domain, that is what you get it. If you don't start the server domain mode, okay, you get only 3 folders: configuration, data, and temp. Compared to the standalone mode, okay, the structure of your domain mode is little different. For example, if you start a standalone instance, okay, I think I made some change. Oh, my bad. Okay, so what I'm doing is that I'm trying to start a standalone instance. If you see here, now my standalone instance got started. The moment the standalone instance got started, okay, check the process that is there. Okay, check how many processes are getting created. Okay, you see that there is one particular process, okay, called as a root process available. One and only one process. Everyone able to see that?
Mm-hmm.
Let me kill this one. Now you don't see any process. Okay. When I start a JBoss application server in a standalone mode, I see only one particular process. Okay. And that too the process related to one of the JVM, that is only one JVM that is running in the standalone mode. Now let's see if I try to start a standalone domain instance, how many process by default would be creating.
More than one.
Sorry?
More than one.
Yeah, definitely more than one. Okay. So now my standalone instance is started with some errors. Just ignore those errors.
In domain mode only we create the server groups and all that stuff, isn't it?
Yes, yes. I'll come to that. I'll come to that.
Okay.
Okay. The moment you start your domain mode, okay, you will have two processes that are getting created by default. Okay. And if you have some servers, generally if you see a domain mode, in domain mode by default two servers will be created for you. So whenever you start your domain mode appropriately, then you'll see one process called as an process controller. There will be another process called as an host controller. And after that, if you have any servers in your configuration file which are created in domain mode, those server process IDs will be there. That means to say that minimum to minimum, I'll have two process IDs in my JBoss. But in standalone mode, when I'm starting my JBoss, you'll have only one process ID. This process ID also is related to the JVM that is there inside your standalone environment. But in domain mode, when you're trying to start the JBoss, irrespective of the number of servers you have got, okay, minimum to minimum, there will be two process IDs that will be getting created along with a couple of the other servers you have got. What are those two processes that are getting created? One is called as an process controller. The other one, we call it as an host controller. Keep it. I'll talk about it in few minutes. Okay. Yep. Point number one. Point number two. If you are not starting your JBoss application server, by default, you will have three folders: configuration, data, and tech. If you're starting your JBoss application server in a domain mode, by default, you'll see the logs as well as the servers folder. What is the servers folder? The servers folder is a folder that about the list of servers that you have and that got started successfully. In a standalone mode, we don't have the dedicated folders for the servers. everything is dumped into the one log file. Apart from that, if you see the log files also inside your domain mode, you'll see two process IDs, two process logs, host controller log file and process controller log file. The server is seen under the servers directory. Under the servers directory, depending upon the name of the server you have got, a folder would be created with the server name, and inside that will be having the server.log file. Clear everyone? The moment I start the domain mode, unlike a standalone mode, first thing I observed was that minimum to minimum two process IDs will be created, called as an process controller and host controller. Apart from that, in case if I have the JVM's process ID will be available. In a standalone mode, irrespective of the number of servers I have, if you see in the standalone mode, I can have minimum and maximum one server, and when I start the standalone instance, only that particular server process ID will be there. Okay, that's the first difference. Second difference, what I observed was that in a domain folder, in a domain home, okay, unlike in your standalone directory, I don't see the deployments and the leaf folder, but I see a server folder, okay, which is present in the standalone mode. The other difference here is that, okay, if you see the log structure inside a standalone, the standalone home log directory will give the server.log file in a standalone environment. In a domain mode, to know the server log, go to the domain home, servers directory. With the name of your server, there will be another dedicated folder would be created, and inside that you'll be seeing your server.log file. Clear everyone? Manju and Venu?
Yeah.
Cool. That's the other difference. The fourth difference is that okay, if you observe your standalone directory, depending upon your profile, you will have corresponding standalone XML file. Okay, corresponding standalone XML file called standalone.xml file, standalone-full, or standalone-ha, or standalone-full-ha. But in domain mode, all the profiles related information would be present in one XML file called as an domain.xml file. Okay, whenever you want to see the properties related to a particular profile in a standalone mode, you go to the corresponding profile name with the standalone. For example, to know the information about your default profile, you open the standalone.xml file. To know the information about your full profile, you open standalone-full.xml file. To know the information about your messaging and clustering, you open the standalone-full-ha.xml file. In domain mode, it's not like that. Everything is dumped into one particular file called as an domain.xml file. For example, if you want to know the information of your default, open the domain.xml file and go to the tag called as an default tag. There you'll be seeing the information about your default profile.
So there is a disadvantage with this, like unnecessarily all the resources which we don't need as well will be initiated. Like,
sorry,
if you're not using, for example, if you're not using any clustering or any of the JMS stuff or anything like that, so if it has only one domain.xml, like when we start the domain, the server instance, the resources which we don't need. Yeah.
Your question is that Shiva, it's not a good one. Comment it out. Comment it out. Okay. For example, go to full-profile. You say that Shiva, I use full, I use default, I use HA, but I don't use a full-HA. Comment it out.
Okay.
Clear?
Yeah.
That's another difference. Okay. Okay. Anyone, any questions still here
Do you want to
on the
explain
differences?
about the server groups, how to create server groups
I'll come
or
to that. I'll come to that. Server
okay.
groups not possibly now we can discuss, but in the evening session we'll talk about that. Today, now
Okay.
in this session, we'll only go through the basics. Only basics of the
Okay.
domain mode. Anyone,
Mm-hmm.
any questions? Venu, Manju?
No.
Cool, cool. No confirmation. Good, good. How about you, Manju? You have any questions?
No,
Because
no.
first question, when you say that I worked with JBoss EAP 6.0 is that the first question they tend to ask is that, hey, did you work in standalone or domain mode? You can't say that I had a production environment working for Bank of America, which we operated in the standalone mode. People will start staring at it because that's not that advantageous when compared to the domain mode. And at the same time, you can't say that I don't know about standalone mode. So you'll be saying that I know standalone and domain mode. The next obvious question they'll be asking you is that, can you differentiate me the differences between the domain mode and standalone mode? Okay?
I guess for all the pre-prod and prod, we'll have the domain mode enabled by default.
Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, you
I
can
mean,
say
you
to some
wouldn't
extent.
use the standard. Yeah.
To some extent, you can say that, but I don't want to say that. Okay, dev use standalone, prod use domain. I can't say that because there are companies who use standalone mode even for their production environment. So Shiva, tell me how do we when we say when we can use again that depends upon your architect because he's the one who best understands your application. I think for Venu or Satish, I don't remember. They had their company which was operating in their production environment in standalone mode. So again, that depends. Okay, Manja, I know I didn't answer your question 100%, but that's a little bit political
No,
to
no,
say
I, I,
which one to
I,
use.
I understand that, but production going in standalone, that's, I think, very few cases. Like,
Very
as
few
you said,
cases.
rightly, yeah.
Very few cases. Because domain is the one which will allow you to create 100 servers also with one domain.sh. Standalone, if you want to have
Hmm.
100 servers, you have to run standalone.sh 100 times. Imagine the complexity of maintaining it.
Hmm.
You work with the WebSphere, I think. Am I correct?
Yeah, Westphere and WebLogic.
Okay.
Tom.
You know about the base and express flavor?
Mm-hmm.
Did you anytime work with the
Basin,
base flavor? Base flavor
base
of the
flavor.
WebSphere? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you work with base flavor?
Yeah, I didn't work with the express one. Just
Base?
normal base. Yeah.
What's the difference between a base and a network deployment? Did you anytime
Oh,
anyone
no,
asked you or anytime you thought what could be the difference between both of them?
I mean, if you're going to do this network deployment, so I mean clustering and stuff like that, then you go for the ND.
But believe it or not, you can do the same thing even in your base also. There's something called as an job manager or administrative agent. Either of these two will allow you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's something like similar to that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which one to use, domain or network deployment? It depends again on your requirement. Same here also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyways, you can think about that a little later. So coming back to our topic. Okay. So since no questions for anyone, let me continue. So if you see the configuration folder, we have something called as an host.xml file or host star.xml file and domain star.xml file. Shiva, what are these domain.xml files? What are these host XML files like that? If you see my, one second. Okay. If you see a company, okay, let's say that I have a company or I run a team of 10 people. Okay. Every person, let's say I have, I'll let's say I have team of 4 people. Okay, I have a team of 4 different people. Out of this team of 4 different people, like this, let's say that I have got 10 teams. Do you prefer that I go and talk to the team regularly, or do you prefer that I appoint a team leader, okay, and get the status update from the team leader?
If you can afford the having a team leader, you'll get the team leader.
Okay, cool. So that means to say that when I'm having a team of 4 people,
It's easier to manage, like to get a response
yes,
instead of you going and choosing people.
yes, because every time since I'm handling 10 people, the concentration I can put is not that efficient when I'm trying to manage the team of 10 teams, each team having 4 to 5 people. So what do? I try to choose one person as a team lead. Which one whom I'll be choosing, it's completely my choice. I'll not go through the documentation that is being given by the company or by the project or by the client. I'll make a choice. The one who I feel most comfortable, I'll make that fellow as a team lead and I'll start working with him. Correct or not?
Mm-hmm.
What is the responsibility of this team lead? The team lead has to work, okay, he has to work on his work. Apart from whatever the other team members do, he will be monitoring that. The team lead, okay, is someone like an another resource. Okay, whatever the capabilities the other team members have, this fellow will also have the same capability. Here is that this fellow will not only do the work of how the other people are working. If I see if the team lead sees that person is not working properly, he'll say that, okay, I'll not give you any work for the next release because he's not able to work. Why he's not able to work? Probably his health is not well. Probably he was on a vacation. Okay, probably he's not qualified. Some reasons, personal or professional. So my team lead says that, okay, I'll put you on hold. I'll not give you any request or any load in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So another important point to remember here is that all these 4 team members might be present in the same, or 3 fellows will be there in Hyderabad, 2 fellows will be there in the Bangalore. Possibility is there. Correct or not?
Mm-hmm.
I, as
Yeah.
a project manager or a delivery head or a unit, what do? Okay, I have 10 teams. Clear? 10 teams, I can't go and monitor every one of them because I sit somewhere in UK or Antarctica or Africa somewhere. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what do? I appointed a team lead for each and every project. This team lead, okay, who has around 4 to 5 people under him, okay, whatever the team members have the capability, this team lead also will have the capability. But apart from that, I give him an additional responsibility of being a lead and monitoring every one of them. Clear? And if someone is not well, probably because of personal or professional reason, I want to ensure that the team lead work to him. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
Try to understand the example very clearly. Okay?
Yeah.
And another important point here is that this team I formed in India, okay, couple of team members, 100% chances there. Couple of team members are there in Hyderabad, couple of team members are there in Bangalore. Clear? My team lead has to keep a track of progress on how each and every team member is performing, okay, who are there in his location as well as in the other location. Clear everyone about the example?
Mm-hmm.
When you're clear? Perfect. Why do we try to have the teams distributed across multiple locations? What will happen? Very simple. If you see here recently in Bangalore, there was an Kaveri water issues and there was a ban almost all for 2 to 3 days and horrible roads, horrible situation, cities just recovering from there. So in those scenarios, I cannot allow my team members to say that, hey, I don't care bloody hell whatever is happening in your region. I want you to come to our region.